Kayleb Rae Candrilli is the recipient of a Whiting Award, a Pew Fellowship, and a fellowship from the National Endowment of the Arts. They are the author of Water I Won't Touch, All the Gay Saints, and What Runs Over. Candrilli's work is published or forthcoming in Poetry, American Poetry Review, Plowshares, and others. And Kayleb, we're just so excited to hear you read tonight. I'm going to pin you here. So everybody give a round of applause for Kayleb Candrilli.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I was so scared that I wasn't going to be able to sit down and write. And it turns out I had never had time to sit down and write. So I can, and I'm very thankful for this time and space. Yeah, so I'm going to read you some poems. This one's a little dark, but get it out of the way. Sinners must live with what their sins sow. During my assault, I imagine I choked up bluish tulips in someone else's hands. But the only thing I can conjure in detail is the Wiccan spell of protection and my mother's recipe for wisteria. In this life, I have grown accustomed to rape and the need to keep my body a greenhouse for all carnivorous things. Remember, a mouth feels like it has many teeth only when it closes. Remember, I have built a flower bed from a bruised trachea, and that is only the start of my industriousness. My skin can smell deer pillaging the garden. My throat has turned itself to topsoil. Forget-me-nots never stop spilling from my neck. So this one I wrote while I was here, and it's so new. I read it in class yesterday, Justin, but it doesn't even have a title. That's where we're at with this one. So, okay. I am old enough now that friends have bloomed into petally and chlorophylled parents. I imagine the trouble they will have with their mouthy teens and feel hopeful for just a moment. I am old enough now that friends try and try to conceive, but cannot. This world is built on synchronicity, but not symmetry, and certainly not fairness. We are old enough now that my friend has lost a child to the heavy swing of bad chance. My friend that wanted me so badly on his tall and sturdy shoulders at the synthy glowing concert only wanted to train for his future child, to practice the rarity of a gentle and safe father. What I know now that I did not know before, loss is such a rugged meadow of violence. So here, in this rough meadow of meantime, let me on your shoulders and I'll lift you onto mine. We can parent one another here in this painful grassland. We can wait here together for a new season of wildflowers as we remember the last. Oh, those came from not haikus. Metaphor dice. Yeah. Yeah, we gotta find ways.
How does that work?
Okay.
Metaphor dice. Never seen that.
Yeah, so I think it's a little ham-fisted that they did red, white, and blue, but concept, adjective, object. So loss is a rugged meadow. And you roll the die, and if you get both sets, there's 53,000 possibilities. So that's math. All right.
What's it called again?
Metaphor dice.
Metaphor dice. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
And there's a regular set and then an expansion set. And I say just get them both. All right. So my partner will like tell me what to write about. And they really like Ariana Grande. So they tell me what to write about, and then I put it in the title. And then it's a total bait and switch. I completely abandon it. And this is a running joke we have. So this poem is titled On Imagining Ariana Grande Before the Fame, Working Every Summer at a Rita's Italian Ice. Not everyone is who they used to be. Even I wore too much eyeliner in 2007. Even I was cruel to the first cute butch girl that hit on me. I was scared of only myself. I burnt myself with the Chi hair straightener and took pink pearl erasers to my forearms and thighs. So many of us did. Now, most of us are who we always intended to be, and some of us are dead. I regret every unkind thing I've ever done, but won't search for any forgiveness. Why open a wound you hope has already closed? After I came out, I got a job as a side of the street mascot. My old friends threw pennies out their car windows, and sure, they stung as they hit. But I just listened to Lady Gaga and imagined a different kind of body for myself. I once told a girl I almost loved that I could never love her. I regret it every time I slam a door, not because the door is closed, but because of all that excessive noise. All right. We've got another metaphor dice poem coming at you from the log poem up here. So it's 2 poems written in the house using metaphor dice. So I rolled guilt is an unruly mirror. Another apology lost in the mail. Guilt is such an unruly mirror, speckled with toothpaste and all our other mistakes. If I had been a different person, perhaps I would be a different person. Outside, there are notes of night, city owls and city sirens. My life now is more one of maintaining my stucco home than it is of apologizing to those I wronged a decade ago. Breaking down boxes, I slice my shin with a cutter and blame my younger self for misdeeds still accruing karmic interest. Outside, there are chords of mourning. City boys saying, I'm sorry, to closed windows that may or may not open. We haven't been shouting at one another, me and Dianelli, so I haven't really talked a lot here in the house. Yeah, okay. But this is my partner's favorite poem I've ever written. Why, I don't really know, but they're so insistent that this is the one that I have to read it all the time now. They call it the baseball poem, which I should probably call it that, but from above. It's a new year, and each oyster I open re-injures my 2-seam shoulder, my curveball bones. At the baseball fields, we believed in both pearls and the American dream. At the baseball fields, we were always almost abducted. There, I ate only Swedish fish and kissed the most beautiful girls, ducked behind dugouts. I remember their flowering Nokia phone cases, mainly, and how they all knew I was a boy and whispered so. While I'm in the air, flying coach, I still count the diamonds, each a gemstone cut from the grassland. Each time I've been kissed, I smell sunflower seeds. I smell yellow before she even arrives. My partner's favorite color is yellow. So, it was a little shout out. I think, the only atlas we need is one drafted by children. I know because a woman told me even a horse's shoe against stone can spark a fire that wilds too far. All humans have forged in the embers, combust eventually. The copper busts of men who believed only in genocide are common as clouds. The barrels of 357s were born red hot before they tucked themselves into angry men's waistbands. Yes, I write about my body because nobody wants me to have one. This is not a lonely life. This is the truth of all people I have kissed under the shade of weeping willows. In Pennsylvania, we are known to gamble our money as much as our lives. Scratch-offs, Powerball, lifting rocks to wrestle both king and coral snakes. Red touching black, safe for Jack. Red touching yellow, kill a fellow. Children in a forest depend on verse, limerick, the iambs of wind throbbing through birch trees. Across the country, my desert family drinks exclusively Pacifico and grafts the wounds of cacti. Two species eager to grow as one. This is all to say, most people understand more about transness than they let on. My small town let me play baseball with the boys, let me dodge the goose shit, littering right field, and let me lead off. All transgression of gender permissible if I batted over 300, listened to Three Doors Down, Creed, and supported the war. What comes first, the hatred or the curriculum to teach it? I memorized 4 centuries of papal reign before the periodic table. I knew atomic warfare before the atoms bumping together to build it. I learned I was alive before I learned how I became so. Parents all atomic and chafing. Some things are inevitable, like rain in April, a teenager's lust, and disease dancing through a child's poorly tended ant farm. Somewhere, a child is playing cartographer in the woods, making maps of worm writing. Somewhere, that child marks the roads we should have taken and only tempera paint. I got 2 more poems. Yeah. So I was in Iowa once, and one time in Iowa, I just saw these young boys together, and I don't think they thought they were going to be seen, and they were super cute on traveling together. In a Super 8 just outside Iowa City, 2 12-year-old boys are cuddled on a lobby couch, scrolling on their phones. It is late, and they don't expect me or anyone in this holy space they've drawn for themselves. Their parents are asleep on the 3rd floor, getting ready for a hockey tournament or some other rough and tumble game. It's clear by the way the boys jump that their parents know nothing. The continental breakfast will start soon. The floor is lava. The couch they're on is an island I've been to. They were so cute, y'all. Didn't mean to scare them, but I was coming home late, so. All right, that's just one more poem. And this is another one where my partner is like, write me a poem about Sheryl Crow. And I was like, yes and no. Yeah. My partner wants me to write them a poem about Sheryl Crow, but all I want to do is marry them on a beach that refuses to take itself too seriously. So much of our lives have been serious. Over time, I've learned that love is most astonishing when it persists after learning where we come from. When I bring my partner to my childhood home, it is all bullets and needles and trash bags held at arm's length. It is my estranged father's damp bed of cardboard and cigar boxes filled with gauze and tarnished spoons. It is hard to clean a home, but it is harder to clean the memory of it. When I was young, my father would light lavender candles and shoot up. Now, my partner and I light a fire that will burn all traces of the family that lived here. Black plastic smoke curdles up, and loose bullets discharge in the flames. My partner holds my hand as gunfire rings through the birch trees. Though this is almost beautiful, it is not. And if I'm being honest, my partner and I spend most of our time on Earth feeding one another citrus fruits and enough strength to go on. Every morning, I pack them half a grapefruit and some sugar, and they tell me it's just sweet enough. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
All right, everybody, you can turn your mics off for a second if you just want to give Kayleb a round of applause, or you can use the applause feature. Thank you so much, Kayleb.
So good. So good.
It's
Thank you for listening.
Sweet, so sweet, lovely, lovely, lovely.
Kayleb, that I have to say, I've had a long week, and it's just it's like light being poured through my body, just hearing your poems, and it's just so healing. So thank you so much. And it's remarkable to me that this is your first residency with all your accomplishments, and we're so proud that it's here.
Yeah, thank you. I wrote 16,000 words, not counting poems.
We can't wait to read them. Well, thank you, and we'll do questions at the end. So if you have thought of some questions for Kayleb, save them for the end, and then you can put them in the chat later at the end, and I'll read them off to Kayleb and Diannely. But for now, Kayleb, thank you, and we're going to transition to Diannely. So here we go. Diannely, let me pin you here. Okay, there we go. Welcome, Diannely, in the west wing of the house in the cute little kitchen there. So Dianelli Antigua is a Dominican-American poet and educator, born and raised in Massachusetts. Her debut collection, Ugly Music, from Yes Yes Books, a Portland publisher, in 2019, was the winner of the Pamet River Prize and a 2020 Whiting Award. So we have 2 Whiting Award winners in the house, and I couldn't be more proud. She received her BA in English from the University of Massachusetts Lowell, where she won the Jack Kerouac Creative Writing Scholarship, and received her MFA at NYU, where she was awarded a Global Research Initiative Fellowship to Florence, Italy. I'm jealous. She is the recipient of additional fellowships from Contamundo, Community Writers, Fine Arts Works Center, and was a finalist for the 2021 Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Poetry Fellowship, which is huge. Her work has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize and chosen for the Best of the Net anthology. Her poems can be found in Poem a Day, Poetry Magazine, the American Poetry Review, Washington Square Review, the Adroit Journal, and elsewhere. But her heart is in Brooklyn. So we're so glad to have her in person in Portland, Oregon, in Tigard, Oregon. Diannely, thanks so much for being here and for reading for us tonight. Take it away.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I always forget that that's the end of my bio, that my heart is in Brooklyn, which it is. It has a piece of my heart. I think my heart is in a lot of different places, so I should probably change where my heart is, but it's definitely in Brooklyn, definitely in Tigard right now. It's in Massachusetts, it's in New Hampshire, it's all sorts of places. I just want to thank you, Justin, for choosing Kayleb and I to come here, especially at the same time. Like, it's been a fucking pleasure, like no other. And like, I just love this combo. And thank you, Kayleb, for being here with me and dealing with the strange weather that we've had. That has definitely entered into some poems that I'm going to read for you tonight. And thank you to all you that come tonight, and PCC. Thanks to my mom, she's here. Thanks, my partner is also here. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to read you one poem from my book, Ugly Music, and then everything else is not in the book, and some are brand spanking new. But I always start with this one. Re-education. I listen to podcasts to learn about feminism, watch porn to make sure I'm doing it right. I dance on the bar because coyote ugly, because these shoes and this drink. I'm almost 30, and I still think Bloody Mary is a game with a mirror. Sometimes she appears at 2 a.m. Sometimes she's in the toilet, piss reflection before the flush. There is a truth in this magic. The time I took Plan B, then the other time I took Plan B, I bled for 2 months. There could have been a mother in me, and I told no one, except the man at Tacos Lupita, who asked what I wanted in my burrito, and I think I said baby. I think I spun around 3 times and whispered a name. And there was no floor when I fell, when a queen flew from my womb. There was glass and napkins and the doctor saying, wake up, wake up. Okay. Oof. So this next poem that I'm going to read for you is, again, like I love to, like Kayleb, love to use different things to create poems and to inspire. So I decided to write a poem using an Easter pamphlet that was left on my door by Jehovah's Witnesses, and just use the language and to tell, my own story. So these are the games that poets play: metaphor dice, Jehovah's Witness pamphlets. So here we go. Self-portrait as Easter pamphlet on the door. There is a special night, 1,000 nights from this. I commemorate my annual dying when I witnessed myself as a mountain, a failed Jehovah, no followers. I'm trying to reach the congregation inside me. Please join us for the death. You are welcome to attend. I'm trying to remember my giving up, location, date, and time. Was it in the meadow by the old school? Was it April? Were kingdoms lining the hall to the bathroom when on hands and knees I crawled to the toilet to find that my cup had not passed, but lived inside my gut, silver chalice and all. I forget who witnessed the first time, who stood in the watchtower on the hill and placed a Bible at my feet. I'm trying to believe I'm the collection to be had, and I'm broken like bread. Take, eat. So I definitely took some liberties with that pamphlet out of my own language, but it's just, poetry is everywhere. Yeah, you can find it in an Easter pamphlet, you can find it in a menu. I'm a firm believer that poetry is just wherever you want to focus that keen eye towards. These next 2 poems are what I call diary entry poems. And I've been writing in diaries since I was 9 years old, and I've filled over 36 journals. And what I've been doing with those is writing poems using language that I have collected from those journals. So what I'll do is I will write them down on a piece of paper, and then use that language and only that language with a few different rules in order to write the poem. So this one is called Diary Entry number 28, Ars Poetica, which is taken from the 28th diary with the language that I've collected. Diary entry number 28, Ars Poetica. I start where I am most afraid. An addiction to beauty is a place to keep a loss. My father liked to sing love songs, his lips elongating each vowel, his tongue breaking the center of everything. And he, so tender to the sound at birth. I'm listening to jazz in the park again, crying in rooms that don't belong to me. It's true. The wrong music can be damaging, and every photograph is an elegy. So I practice posing in bathroom stalls to feel effortless. All flowers want to be looked at, and chasing the moon is a chronic condition. How can I translate where my finger lands into language? In conversation, I drop a little French like a baby out the window. On TV, anyone can be dead and look like art. A long life is avant-garde. So I place mine on the open shelf, on the edge. This next one is diary entry number 3, study on the negative. And what I wanted to do in this particular diary entry was literally put a negation in every single line, or like a mirror image of a negation. So the word on could be a mirror image of a negation because it's no. So it was just a lot of fun trying to negate something in every single line. So diary entry number 3, study on the negative. I want to be the prettiest bird on the internet. So I pretend they can see me through the motel mirror. I practice lust, little loon on a bed of no love. The mirror says, my life is not worth the imitation of life. I am not the favorite. I am not Noah. I am the dumpster where I find the angel of the Lord spelling my name with nothing but fortune cookie crumbs, which is not to say there is hope. No one will believe. It might be a disease making me beautiful for a limited time. For a limited time, I don't have a will or testament, but I have this never-ending emptiness to give away like jewels. Don't make me out to have value when all I can't do is exist. I don't need to be a car flipped over on the side of the road. I've romanticized displaying my mortality like a Da Vinci behind a red velvet robe. The Mona Lisa, slightly awkward, and the crowd taking pictures. Yeah, the Mona Lisa, by the way, is tiny. If you ever do get to see it in Paris, it is tiny. It's tiny. Yeah, when I got to see it, I was 21. And I had been studying abroad in Spain, and we did a weekend in Paris. And I just thought it was going to be like this great moment when I finally saw the Mona Lisa, and it was like, meh, meh. But it was still beautiful in all its ways, but it was just so tiny. But if you're ever in Paris, do see the Mona Lisa. All right, so the next 2 poems that I have coming at you are poems that I've written here in lovely Portland or Tigard. So the title just runs right in, so I'm gonna start with that. In Portland, it rains, the sun comes out. It hails, the sun comes out, then it rains again. The ants find their way to the kitchen counter where I spilled a little sugar. The spider by the nightstand is the second to last lover I'd want to wake up next to. The doctor says I have an abscess on my tonsil, and for 3 days I can't swallow my spit without wincing. The wind makes the house creak, which sounds like someone trying to break into my sick nest. At night, from the window, I see 6 deer eating from the bushes, and I am glad to witness this all-you-can-eat buffet. WebMD says I could die, but I already knew that. My beloved and I talk through a screen, and it's the first time I hear how pathetic this voice can be. Then I smash the spider with my shoe, and the hail starts again. In the morning, the dead spider vibrates under the swarm of ants covering it, weeping. Yeah.
We're definitely putting that up on the wall just to scare every future resident. I love it. I love it.
Those ants, and they're so tiny. They just like come in, like they're like everywhere. All right, so this next poem, again, another Portland poem. Another poem about nature, but really it's about me. I'm not used to all this nature. Robin and the blue jay perch on the railing outside my window while I sip my coffee. The centipede scurries in the sink next to my dirty spoon. I leave the birds alone, but the centipede has to go. So I name it Ben after one of my exes and drown it. Send it down the drain. All exes live there, down the drain where they've crawled out of the pipe sludge to the clean stainless steel of the undermount sink. By the way, this is a borrowed kitchen. By the way, this is a borrowed life. I don't belong in a log cabin in the woods where the squirrels are actually startled. I want the don't give a fuck attitude of a New York squirrel eating from the palms of whoever has something to give. The leftover crumbs from the morning's bacon, egg, and cheese, or the last bit of falafel dipped in hummus from Mamoon's. But wasn't that a borrowed life too? I was supposed to be a preacher's wife, skirt to my ankles, Bible in my purse. And I was supposed to be a mother. The doctors don't know if this body can cradle the egg before it's flushed. And I'm not supposed to be jealous of the birds or the squirrel or the drowned centipede. How easy it was to blame it and then let the water run. Oh man. Thank you. I have 2 more for you. This has been a pleasure to read for y'all. And it's so funny because like Kayleb is literally in the other room, but it's funny to see them on the screen and their reactions. But like, and I've read some of these poems to Kayleb, and they've been so helpful with revisions, and so I'm so grateful. So thank you, Kayleb. Okay, this next poem is titled "I'm Almost 30." Similar to the claim that I make in the first poem I read, but I do want to be very honest. I am not almost 30. I am past that. I am past the I'm almost 30. I am in the 30s. I am 30, flirty, and thriving. And I love my 30s. I would not go back to my 20s at all. I'm excited for 35. I'm excited for 40 and 45 and 50 and beyond. Anyway, I'm almost 30 and give a good blowjob, but can't open a bottle of wine without breaking the cork. I'm almost 30 and in my nightmare, all of my exes are meeting for coffee. Like an unlikely family of missed orgasms. And I want to say, I'm almost 30. And 30 other women and I wait in line to pee at a Backstreet Boys concert. And afterward, we all want the same thing. We all want to fuck a Backstreet Boy tonight. Dear God, I'm almost 30. And I'm lost in a funny thing. Like looking so beautiful while the light of the street lamp falls perfectly on my skin and I've survived. Or how my mother's friend who visited me in the hospital each time is dying of cancer while I run in the street. My lover chasing me barefoot because I'm drunk again. So he takes the keys. So he pulls me inside and I pretend to sleep on the couch, sneak out when I hear him snoring and drive down Main Street with Klonopin and gin and my belly and my eyes are almost 30. Blurry with unexpected sanity, like when the guest at the restaurant touched my arm as she left, handing me the bill saying, I can't believe you're almost 30. And with a green speck of nori still stuck in her teeth, she smiled and told me I was a good waitress and that my energy was warm. And I cried as I bussed the table because I'm almost 30 and I have so much sin left to live. And more weeks to leave bloodstains on a mattress when really I just want to roll up to every funeral like I own it. Sexy to meet Jesus in a white dress, the runs in my nylons, all fixed with nail polish, and I'm almost 30. And the people in this town like to watch the piping plovers on the beach, their orange feet skittering across the shoreline like a joy I don't understand. As if the vastness of the Atlantic wasn't the backdrop, as if the water couldn't claim a tiny body for itself and swallow it whole. Alrighty. So this last one is a shorty, it's very short. And I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has stuck around and listened and been a part of this evening. I just feel so honored and again, so grateful to have this opportunity. Anniversary. Outside, an abandoned mattress sags with rain, and the driveway turns all sludge. When I remember, I could have died 8 years ago in a bed smaller than the one I share with a new lover who just this morning found another gray hair in my afro. And before resettling a wiry curl with the others, kissed the freckle on my forehead. I admit, I don't know a love that doesn't destroy. Last night, while we slept, a mouse drowned in the rice pot I left soaking in the sink. I tried to make a metaphor out of this. The way he took the mouse to the edge of the lake in the yard and released it to a deeper grave. But it was an anniversary. Just my lover taking a dead thing away, taking it somewhere I couldn't see. Thank you so much.
Gosh, thank you so much, Dianelli. That was fantastic. And if you'd like to turn your mic off, your mic on for a second and give Dianelli a round of applause, you're welcome to.
Oh, good. Oh my God.
good. So good.
Love you.
What a great reading, you two. I'm so glad that you're there together. It's just such a pleasure to have you there together. Your energy seems great together, and I hope it's helpful to both of you. Well, we have gotten a couple questions, so I'll ask those questions to you all, to you both. And if you have any more questions, if everyone has any more questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box here. We'll start with a question from Abel, just a good starting question here for both of you. How did you both find your way to poetry as an artistic medium? You know, the classic question. So go ahead.
Okay, I'll give you a breather. So my mom told me my whole life I was going to be a writer. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm going to be an architect. And I was bad at math. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to be, a cartographer first, but then I settled on demography. And I did go to the University of Arizona for demography. And liked it very much. But then I got mononucleosis in the first week of college. I don't really know how that could have happened. And I couldn't play rugby. I couldn't play sports. And nobody wanted to hang out with me because I had mono. So I saw a flyer for Sister Spit, which was like a traveling troupe of queer people, queer artists. Michelle T was there, and like Amos Mack was there. I still can't remember seeing a trans person earlier than seeing Amos Mack giving a talk at the school in Sister Spit. And then Kira von Traber read a poem, and I was like, it's done, it's over. That's it.
That's great.
I went home and I started writing awful poems. And then I transferred to Penn State and I studied writing for 8 years.
Yeah.
One poem.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. But my mom was right.
They always are. Dianelli, how about you?
My story I feel like is not as exciting as Caleb's, but like I mentioned earlier, I've been writing since I was 9. My oldest sister gave me a journal for Christmas one year, and she, used to write poems and write in a journal as well. And she was kind of just like passing the baton to me. So she gave me a journal, and she actually gave my other sister a journal too. But I was the one that kind of just like ran with it. I just kept writing and writing, and I was a sad, emotional kid. Always crying. My mother has taken pictures of me crying because she's been surprised at the amount of tears that my body has been able to produce. So there's some family pictures like that. And I just had so many things I needed to say and no one to hear them. I grew up extremely religious, and there were a lot of things that I could not say out loud to anyone. So I wrote them in my journals, and I kind of started experimenting with, different genres. I wrote, short stories, and at 15, I attempted to write a book. That did not happen. A book of fiction didn't happen. But it was one summer I was really bored working at my stepfather's office. So I thought I would, write a book. And then I found poems, and I started writing poetry, and started reading a lot of Julia Alvarez, who is a Dominican poet and novelist. And I kind of just like really dove into all of her work, and then, just kind of discovered this whole other world of poetry that I didn't know about. And then when I finally graduated high school and decided to, go to college, I went, to study writing. And even then I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to continue as far as poetry, or in a different genre. But I finally took a class with Maggie Dietz, who is an amazing professor and writer. And she looked at me, she said, "You're a poet, like, what are you doing?" And to this day, she's been a wonderful mentor and has written me a bajillion letters of recommendations for things. Yeah, I feel like I became a poet because there were people along the way that kept reminding me that I was a writer. Yeah, little nudges at a time.
Yeah, those affirmations are so important. I was at a bar in Port Townsend one time, and a stranger walked up to me and said, "You're a poet," and then walked away. It was the weirdest thing. I was like, I guess I am. But those little affirmations are so important. Dianelli, this question's for you. We've had a couple questions about the diary poems.
Okay.
So Megan's asking about when you write about the same thing in multiple entries over the years. Some, the subject matter is often going to be the same over the years as you have a particular subject. How does writing about that same thing over the years affect the current poems? Does that question make sense?
It does. So,
and the other question, and I think you could splice this in, what are the rules you follow when borrowing from diaries?
Right. So I feel like I'm just a person. I'm an obsessive person, I'm going to say that. And I just write about the same things over and over and over again, whether it was in my diary or just in poems. Like if you read my book, Ugly Music, you will find almost every poem has the word eggs in it. Just go look, almost all of them have eggs. I'm just an obsessive person. And I think it's been interesting to see how the writing has evolved as I've grown older. Slightly more sophisticated in some ways, but the truth, the emotions are still quite the same, even though some of the narrative has changed. But I find it really interesting when I go to collect lines from each of these journals, how maybe my opinions have changed about things, especially when it came to religious beliefs. And I try my best to try to reflect that in the poems as well, if that makes any sense. But my poems are just riddled with religious imagery that just comes in and out, and it's just interesting. And I kind of just try to let the poems happen organically as much as possible, but again with these specific rules that I'll go into now. So as I explained before, I take one diary and I collect lines from that diary, and I try to look for nouns and verbs, and if there are repeated images, I like to write those down as well. And once I've done that part, some of the rules that I then follow as I write the poem is that any filler language is up for grabs. So even if I didn't collect that language, it's prepositions, conjunctions, anything that's going to be the connective tissue of sentences, I can use or glean from my own vocabulary for that. Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, all of those are interchangeable. Though I did not believe in the Trinity when I was younger, it's still just as far as when it comes to the rules in the poem, those are all kind of the one and the same. And I can use those as I like. Genders can be changed, tenses can be changed. It was fun with the study on the negative poem where I allowed myself to do the opposite of a word. So that rule was kind of specific for that particular poem. I'm trying to think if I had any other rules. Yeah, those are basically it. But I tend to stick to the emotional truth of the subject or of the diary, and don't really focus too much on factual or biographical truth, though it's sprinkled in. But that's not really the concern for me. I think what I am exploring is a retelling and a reclaiming of a story, how I want to tell it. It doesn't have to be necessarily how it happened, but it's a way for me to feel empowered, because in these journals, you know, I was in positions, I was very vulnerable, for lots of different reasons, because I was young, because I was in a religious system, because I was a woman of color, so many different reasons to be vulnerable. So in these poems, I want the agency to change what I'd like, but at the same time, being true to what I was feeling, and you know, the burden that I was carrying. That to me is the most important part of writing these diary entry poems. Hope I answered your question.
That was great. And so many things you said, I'm really curious how Kayleb would answer. One thing, we were talking about your poem, what is it, Unlearning by Example? Is that what it's called? Do you know what
I think so. It's got bats in it, right?
on the benefits of learning by example? Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, there you go.
And
bats.
there's religious imagery in there. So you know, a lot of religious imagery, and you have other religious imagery in your poems. And so I'm curious about your relationship to religious imagery as well. But then as Dianelli was saying, the difference between emotional honesty and factual honesty, and how that plays a role in your work as well.
I was not brought up religious at all. It was kind of around me. But my parents were pretty fiercely agnostic, atheist, some blend of the two. And I felt so much like I had no agency in my life, for other reasons. And I had a touch of hubris too. So imagine these two things together, like no agency, but just like cocky. And I developed kind of a sacrilegious affinity for religion, where I found all of my faith in myself. And that was how I, you know, communed with something higher. And then what was the second question? I just told you I thought I was God when I was a child.
You have a lot of like narrative stuff about your own life, and I'm really interested in what Dianelli was saying about emotional honesty versus factual honesty, and if you change the story sometimes in pursuit of the emotional truth.
I changed the stories because I can't remember. So no, and this is important. And maybe one day I'll change my mind, or this won't be how I communicate with people. But I thought that it was important for me in my trans body to write as though I were myself all the time. So everything is true and everything is autobiographical. And I dress it up in like lyricism, but it is my life. And these are, you know, this is my partner, this is my family, this is my father. Yeah, this is my body. So, and I thought that was important because I was 24 when I read a book by a trans person. And to that point, I was almost done with, you know, that two master's degrees in English and a bachelor's. So a lot of people had an opportunity to give me a book written by a trans person, and nobody did. So a friend put one in my mailbox. And that was how I read a book written by a trans person. And I thought, that's so fucking ridiculous. And that can't happen anymore. So that's why I write about myself as though I am truly myself, so that other people do it too.
Yeah, I've noticed how forward you are in your bios and in your and sort of the media out there about your transness, whereas some trans people play it down a little bit or aren't as forward about it. And you know, I'm just really appreciate that. So thank you for that answer too. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. Any more anecdotes for us? So apparently there are ants in the house. We'll attend to that. Any more anecdotes about, yeah, you saw a fox, right, Caleb?
I did. And you had mentioned coyote, which I have heard.
Hmm.
So when I saw the little guy scurrying around, I was like, "You're not a coyote." And I think it's like a regular gray fox, but its feet were a little red, and it had that foxy face.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I only saw it the once, right in the beginning. So happy to see it.
You mentioned a willow in one of your poems. You've got that willow right out there, right at your window too.
I've got the willow, though that poem happened before, but now I got another poem that I wrote here
Nice.
with a willow in it. So yeah, it was willowy enchantment. Come on.
I'm gonna need copies of all these Carolyn Moore poems. I'm gonna need to read
Yeah.
it. Do you know any other anecdotes for us from the house?
Well, I was looking at the chat, and someone had a question about losing one's religion.
Yeah, a poem about losing the religion. Okay.
And many of us have been through that experience, and the person says they're curious. Yeah, ooh, that's like been a lifetime of losing my religion. And I think that poetry has helped me in that way to establish what I believe instead of being told what to believe.
Mm.
I don't quite know where my faith lies now. And the thing is, I don't feel like I need to answer that either, which is an empowering thought, because I'm allowing, my life to unfold and allowing it to come to me as it comes to me. The religious experience that I had when I was younger, it was non-denominational, but very much Pentecostal. And everything about my life was controlled. What I could wear, what I could listen to, who I could talk to, where I went to school. I went to the church school only. There was a religious curriculum. I didn't learn about feminism until college. So many things that hopefully graduating and also just going to university allowed me to explore about myself, about poetry, and about a world outside of a religious system that was killing me, honestly. And it's not to say that all religion is like that at all, but just my personal experience was very damaging. And as I've mentioned, poetry has been really, really helpful in unpacking that and allowing myself to express that in a way that is safe and also on my terms.
Love that. Yeah. Caleb.
I suppose this is like less tactile, right? Like less direct, but I think about like the movement of some of my poems. And what feels like it's happening to me all the time is I'm losing a religion in the middle of the poem and then putting something new back together at the end, right? And I feel like that's kind of how I'm going through life too. I'm a deeply faithful person. I just don't really, it's just always changing. So I feel like the faith kind of drops out somewhere in the poem, and then we have to put it back together.
I love that. Well, we have one more question from Jorge, and they just want to know, you're in a different place here, writing in a different place. Do you find your poems change, the diction, tone of your poems change at all depending on where you are, just physically in a location?
Absolutely. That's why I've been writing a lot about nature and ants and insects and whatnot, because I'm here and I'm seeing it, I'm living it, I'm experiencing it. And that's why I had to, title that one poem, Another Nature Poem, but really it's about me. Because at the end of the day, it is about me and my experience, even though I'm observing an ant or a centipede, or even the deer, which the deer have been just phenomenal and wonderful and majestic. Deer are my spirit animal. I have a deer on the cover of my first book. It's just when Justin and I pulled in, when he picked me up from the airport,
Oh yeah.
There was at least 5 of them just like chilling in the field.
Big eyes.
And I just like knew, I was like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be right now. So definitely my poems changed depending on the location. When I was living in New York, a lot of things about New York were entering into the poem. And I, you know, whether it was the subway or, you know, specific streets or cafes, it was, and even I feel like even the movement, I felt like those poems were like very urgent. And some of the poems that I've been writing here feel a little slower. Like I take my time to explain something, to observe something, whereas, you know, the poems that I wrote in Brooklyn felt, you know, like I had to rush, like I gotta say this and I gotta say it now. Yeah, thank you, George. That's my cousin.
Oh, George, okay.
Question.
I see the Joy. Yeah, thank you, George.
And then I suppose I live in Philadelphia right now, but that is not where I grew up. I grew up much more rural than that. So when I am in a space that reminds me of that, it's kind of like the key to the kingdom. It unlocks things that I wouldn't be able to have access to if it wasn't around me. You know, like our brains can't hold as much as we've done or have seen. And sometimes it needs a little remembrance. So like the Cardinals around, which are less frequent than the Blue Jays, but there are, you know, then I get to write about my grandfather. And I remember him like loving two roads diverge in a yellow wood by Robert Frost, and just getting absolutely shit-faced and like howling it off the veranda. And he's like such a weird dude that like he's got peacocks that I'm feeding. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, well, if I didn't see the cardinal, which I wouldn't have in Philadelphia, would I have remembered the peacocks my drunk grandfather kept as he screamed Robert Frost off the veranda? I don't know.
Is that a poem? Is there a poem? Have you written a poem about this? There's got to be a poem about that.
The peacocks appear in poems, yeah, but no, we're
the drunk
full tilt prose with drunk grandpa, Peacock Farm, Putnam County. We're no more lyricism. We're just brass tacks facts.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, how you two feeling? We've got a couple more questions, but I feel like we're winding down here. Somebody wants to know what your life would be like without poetry. And then, you know, Kayleb, we were talking about your book and how your new book explores climate change and explores, you know, your trans experience and maybe future themes as well. So we'll end on those two, and then we'll be done for the night.
Wait, what are we talking about?
I wrapped it all up. You didn't catch all that?
Oh, you wrapped it up?
Yeah, no, I was, I wrapped all the questions up. Okay. Yeah, you know, somebody wanted to know what your life would be like without poetry. So maybe an encouragement to the folks listening to try poetry and what it means to you and what it does for you.
Okay, so like I would have more money if I didn't do poetry, if that wasn't like my only thing. So let's start there. But this is how I grow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Sometimes the poem reveals like a maturity that just got unlocked. I become more empathetic. I get softer, you know. My sense of responsibility is for a wider net of people with each poem I write, which is like exhausting, but good work. Yeah, I get softer
That's beautiful. Dianelli?
Yeah, that was a beautiful answer, Caleb, and I like don't even know how I'm, going after that. But my life would be starkly different without poetry. I mean, I probably would be a preacher's wife with a Bible in my purse if it weren't for poetry, to be honest. Yeah, as I said before, poetry and words in general were my way to finally become myself, who I wanted to be, and not who someone was dictating me to be. And as Caleb said, poetry does make you softer, and it does make you more empathetic. And something that poetry does too, whether I'm writing it, and most of the time when I'm reading it, is that it brings me so much joy. Like, I truly cannot express the joy that I feel when I read a poem that I truly connect with and that I feel seen by. And I mean, I could talk to Storm about Ada Limon and Sharon Olds, but like when I read one of their poems, it does something to me. It makes me feel like I'm supposed to be there in that very moment, reading those very words. And I'm full of just the slightest like glimmer of hope. And it feels so good. And it like warms my chest. And I don't know anything else that does that for me.
Yeah. Not like poetry does. Yeah. Yeah. And I want to believe that poetry makes you more empathetic, but I've met some asshole poets, and I want to say that you two are two of the just genuinely sweetest and kindest poets I've met. And so I'm so grateful that you're at the house right now, and we're so grateful that you read for us tonight. So thank you so much on behalf of PCC community. And if you'd like to turn your mics on, you can, or off, you can say thank you to Dianelli and Caleb right now.
Thank you so much,
That
guys.
was fabulous.
Thank you.
I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.